I want to speak to you today about the important subject of a good man. And I've already done a video for the gentlemen out there regarding what a good woman may look like. But I want to speak today to the ladies, and I want to highlight just some points that may be helpful for you if you are looking for a good man. And it's important when we're in the dating scene to understand that we are going to meet a whole number of different personalities out there. And it's important to be able to understand that good men and the not so good or dysfunctional individuals that we may meet show up with quite particular characteristics early on. And I just want to highlight a couple of those characteristics today and to contrast that with what a good man may possibly show up as. And the first word that comes to mind when I think of a good man is the word reliability. And we all want to be in a loving and a comfortable and safe relationship with a partner of the opposite sex, or possibly of the same sex, if that is your preference. And when we go into a relationship with someone, none of us is going to want to go into a relationship consciously with someone who is dysfunctional and who is going to make us unhappy at the end of the day. And therefore, it's important to be conscious throughout the process of who just might be before you. And when we consciously date and when we are consciously aware of what is happening in the dynamic, we then train ourselves to be able to identify healthy characteristics very early on. And we can also, when we do that, identify the types of dynamics that may be set up by the other person, sometimes out of our awareness if we're not sure of what's going on. So conscious awareness is the most important thing to have when we go out and we want to identify a good man. And so putting to one side the fairy tale for a moment, that this could be your knight in shining armour, it can be a much more sensible option to identify the type of characteristics that you believe are in a healthy individual who is available for a committed relationship. And so when we know the signs to look out for and the sort of dynamics that will be shown and offered by a healthy, good man, then we are equipped before we go out with the skills and the tools needed in order to identify very early on whether this man is appropriate and a good man for you, a good fit. And often what can happen, what women can do sometimes, and men can do the same thing very much as well, is that we are often put off by things that are not really appropriate to a good relationship. In other words, our values in terms of what we want in a partner are often not in line with an appropriate partner because they may be superficial values. It may be values, for instance, that are based on looks or what someone does for a living, for instance. Whereas those things are not necessarily going to impact on a healthy relationship. And so you are more likely to find a healthy relationship and a good man when we live by solid values that are in line with a good woman. Because a good man is going to be looking for a good woman. And therefore we need to line up vibrationally with his idea of a good woman. And so a good man is going to be looking for a woman who has strong values. And by that I mean values that are based on substance and that are not more shallow values on the surface, such as how much someone earns for a living, for instance. And so that's important to understand that it's not all about what we want, but we need to understand what a good man is going to be looking for in a woman. And if a man is serious about seeking an appropriate partner, he will have a number of standards that he will be looking for. And again, I'm not speaking about shallow values, but he will be looking for character. He will be looking for someone he can depend on. And he will be looking for someone who is true and has substance, because that's who he is. And therefore he will be attracted by a strong woman who values herself enough to hold out for a healthy, committed relationship. Therefore, a healthy, good man is going to be looking for healthy relationship dynamics in a good woman, if he is to take her seriously. Of course, there are men out there who don't take all women seriously and are maybe just looking for a fling or whatever. But a good woman has her values and her standards, and those are boundaried, and she doesn't really allow anybody to push those boundaries, and she has the skills and the tools in order to manage her end of the dynamics as she moves through the dating process. And therefore a good man is going to be aware of these things, and he's going to be looking for a woman of substance, and he is going to be looking for someone, importantly, who he can take seriously. Because the mistake that a lot of women make is that they do not give the impression that they take themselves seriously in their life. And that impression is picked up upon by the people that she meets. And they often act appropriately with regard to that. So it's important really to understand how we are showing up on dates, how we are managing our end of the relationship process, and how we are aware of what is happening as far as the other person is concerned. And to understand that if we want to attract a high caliber partner, we also need to become high caliber ourselves in order to attract the same level of relationships into our lives. So I hope those tips are helpful, and as always, stay safe and happy. Bye bye.